Hello again. It's Tuesday. Might as well have another little chatter. I've been doing a lot of figures. I know everybody knows what the lucky day figures are, but I've been doing calculations. So let's do a deep dive into the television ratings and whatever metric you pick, and show you some alarming data that really does give food for thought regarding Doctor Who and whether it's in terminal decline. Facts talk, no subjectivity, no axe to grind. I'm just fascinated by the figures. And I have to say, that's what I love about it. It's just objective. So you can take your pick. It's a rhetorical question. You can decide whether it is or not. So I asked the question, and there are some amazing facts that are being calculated. And here's the first one, which I'll come back to later, but I've got it already here. Take a look at this. Since Space Babies through to Story and Engine, okay, 38% of the audience has been lost for Doctor Who. And that's on the overnights. So 1.01 million have been lost since Space Babies. That is a 38% of the original audience for Space Babies. But as you know, the media executives don't like the overnights. So I did the 7 days. It gets 1.25 million have been lost on the 7 days from Space Babies to the Story and the Engine. That's a 34% loss. And then, of course, on their consolidated, the ones I really love, because you're on any devices and multiple views can count, 1.31 million have been lost, and that's a 33% loss. If you just for a second say to yourself, in 1 year's time, we lose another 30%, which is fair to say, if you look at those figures, we are then down to 1 million viewers. That's one of the figures I'm going to be showing you later in detail, but let's take another look at various things now. So it was good news for the overnights for the Interstellar Song Contest, and we will discuss the wider context to see if that swallow does make a summer renaissance for Doctor Who or a false dawn. Remember, I'm keen on the wider context, and so are the BBC and the media executives who prefer trends, consolidated figures, longer time frames. So I will give you longer time frames and see if that answer helps, because if you like those figures I just gave you to give you an insight, there's more coming. Oh, just you wait. Okay, I aim to deliver today. So yes, you can decide. I'm not going to say. I will just present the figures and you can make your own decision. Right, let's have a look. Let's take a look at the wider context, because they're like that. And Lucky Day, sorry, not Lucky Day, get my figures right. The Story and the Engine got its consolidated 7-day figures back, didn't it? And it just so happened to be the lowest consolidated in the Doctor Who history. Yeah, 2.7 million it was. It's tanked. Do you want context? Because context gives you the wider picture. Okay, we'll do context. There you go. The Story and the Engine, Lucky Day, Lux, The Well, Legend of Ruby Sunday, Battlefield, Dot and Bubble, Rogue, Empire of Death, Rogue, Legend of the Sea Devils. Those are the worst figures for Doctor Who, and the Story and the Engine is the worst, followed by Lucky Day, followed by Lux, followed by The Well. I mean, whoa, this season. So there's your context, everybody. I'm trying to be fair, but I also know the lovies talk about, oh, no, but it's summer. Oh, there's other things on. People don't sit and watch television anymore. I'm ready. I've got loads of figures to show you that will actually go, Okay, so there we go. With Lucky Day, and I'll go bigger here because I can see the writing's awkward for you. So with Lucky Day, sorry, I keep saying Lucky Day. Do you want somebody to slap me? The Story and the Engine, Doctor Who wasn't in the top 10. It wasn't in the top 20 for the week. Was it in the top 25? No. It was in 35th place. By the way, can I just put this in some context? Like I said, the media lovies love it. Behind Country File on 2.86 million. So when they talk about sheep dip and they show you some of the latest birds, or they show you how to do field management, Doctor Who was 160,000 down on that, on the consolidated, right? The figures that they love. The VE Day 80 commemoration highlights got another 130,000 than Doctor Who. The BBC News at 6. The repair shop, where, let's face it, you go in with some cruddy old chair and you want it reupholstered, and they do it for you, attached to that a nice little sob story. That did better than Doctor Who. So come on, everybody, you answer the question. I'm only going to ask it. Okay? Oh, yes, by the way, before I leave this slide, take a look what's in 38th place, because this didn't quite manage to beat Doctor Who's great juggernaut consolidated figures of 2.7. The BAFTA Television Awards. Now, come on, you're sitting there listening to me. How many? Do you know anybody who loves to watch an awards ceremony? We normally want to turn over. The TV awards ceremony on a Sunday night was only 80,000 less than Doctor Who, right? So like I said, you enjoy the context. I'll just deliver the figures. Okay. And while, like I said, the media lovies tell you nobody watches TV anymore. No, well, you can't measure it like that. And it was summer and right. Okay, then, because the Doctor Who figures keep going down apart from last week, which we will talk about. Race Across the World isn't getting the script. Race Across the World on BBC One a week ago, 5.95 million. This week, 6 on the consolidated I'm talking about. So that's going up. That's getting better. But it's summer. People don't sit and watch TV anymore. Excuse me, which figures do you want, BBC? Make a decision. Because while Doctor Who's decline looks statistically sure, other programs are doing that. What about the Postman drama last year? Yeah. By the way, Thread, I will come to you in a moment. Let me just set out this agenda first, okay? So we had the Postman drama last year. We've now got another exception. Why can't Doctor Who be the exception? Eh? And so the context is not good. I always go big on this one, too many figures. So the context is not good. The BBC says it likes an average of 4 million consolidated for Doctor Who. So if you go into that third column there with the figures, I've color-coded it for you. So you can see that for what the BBC said, that they want an average of 4 million consolidated, Doctor Who's only managed to do that 3 times. Yeah? One of them was Christmas Day. One of them was the opening to season 1 Space Babies. And then we got back to 73 yards. That's it. That's it. You can see I've ambered the rest, and then I've put 2 in red, the 2 latest ones, which are the lowest ever. Yeah? So there's your context. It's not even hitting their target that they mentioned the other day, saying in that Mirror article that they are happy with an average of 4 million. Well, you're not getting it. Right. Okay, let's get back to it. More shocking figures coming. I've saved some really juicy ones. Right, okay, everybody's going to tell me on the other side of the argument, they're going to say, oh, well, I know you're being objective. Well, I don't think they'd actually say that sentence. You're being objective, but what about Interstellar Song Contest? Wow, we got another 980,000 on the overnight. Doctor Who is back. Right, okay then, let's deal with those figures. Okay. The FA Cup final was getting 3.4, went down to 3.2, got back down to 3.01 by the end of the show. They say the Doctor Who average was 2.57 and Doctor Who's audience share was 24%. Okay, right, there you go. Let's take a look. It wasn't up against anything. I mean, take a look. I mean, it was up against the orangutans doing the Great Ape Escape. Yeah. And it was up against Deal or No Deal and some qualifying highlights of the Grand Prix, right? And they're just on the main schedule. So, come on. Yeah, there wasn't much of a deal on, so to speak. So, take a look at that. Not much competition. But you can only fight what's up against you. So, fair dues, Doctor Who did okay there. by the way, normally Doctor Who's audience share is around 12 to 13% when it's got stiff competition. So basically, it added another 10% to its audience share. So basically, this may be an aberration. I'm only talking statistics for those who like to get tribal and say Doctor Who's amazing. Well, okay, I'm just giving you lots of figures. Let's take another one. So you answer the question. I will just posit it as a question. Okay, now the breakdowns for the song contest, the before and after, will tell you an awful lot more, and then I'll give you some really shocking data. Just get ready. So if you take a look at this, between 7:15, if everyone keeps an eye on this, between 7:15 and 7:50, the real core of people who want to watch Doctor Who are watching. Is that a fair assessment? Because, you know, you've just had the legacy of the FA Cup, so I've got that in orange. You can't include those because there was a drop-off anyway. So I've started at 7:15 with the 2.4 figure. And then if you look at those last two figures from 7:50 to 8 o'clock, they're joining fast and the numbers increase fast because they aren't watching Doctor Who. They're getting ready for the Eurovision. Is that fair that I don't include those those 10 minutes? Okay, if that's true, I'm going from 7:15 to 7:50. That is 2.39 million. So the average for this stellar moment with the Interstellar Song Contest wasn't really 2.57 million. Because those people weren't truly watching Doctor Who, were they? They were just either slow in switching off or they got in early for the Eurovision. They weren't watching the story. So the core Doctor Who people, 2.39, okay? All right, so that's one thing to clarify there, and that's going to come into mind with a few other things in a moment. So we'll keep asking the question. Now, this one might shock you. So bearing in mind what we said about the Interstellar Song Contest, which is supposed to be a good week for Doctor Who, apparently, okay? Between the Doctor Who finishing and the Eurovision starting, 3.43 million people arrived to watch the Eurovision. So basically, they were hanging around on some other channel, not wanting to watch Doctor Who. 3.43 million. Now that figure's important because I'm making a bold statement underneath that it's more popular to hate Doctor Who than to like it, statistically. So for those who get triggered, statistically. Now, here's my claim. If all 0.32 million people who tuned out after the football finished and really didn't want to watch Doctor Who, 320,000 disappeared, yeah, who tuned out after football, are the same as those who then joined again, BBC One, to watch the Eurovision later, then these figures would apply. But you know that's not going to be true. These football fans aren't going to be the same Eurovision lovers. However, that makes it a fairer statistical analysis. So go with me. If it's the same people, I can take them away out of this whole equation. So 3.11 million were actively avoiding Doctor Who. Yeah, actively avoiding it. And they were available for terrestrial TV watching. They were about. These are the people you can grab if you write a good program and make a good show. And 2.39 million were actively following Doctor Who. You know, that's the figure I gave you a moment ago, if you agreed with how I set that up. That I started from 7:15 and finished at 7:50. The other people are just add-ons and that part of the bookend. I know they've counted, but they're not truly watching Doctor Who. So that's the figure, 2.39. But you can see there's a 320,000 drop-off from the FA Cup to Doctor Who. And I've pretended they're the same 320,000 who come at the end, because they're nothing to do with Doctor Who either. They're not watching. So that's what I've done. And if you take a look at it, so basically, out of the available TV audience, more people are with their remote avoiding seeing Doctor Who on their screen than those who are actually actively wanting to watch it. Now, I ask you the question, is that something that's a worry for the makers of Doctor Who, that most people, more people should I say, are actively avoiding it. It's another million nearly who are avoiding Doctor Who and could have, if they wanted to, picked it. So there you go. There were 3.43 million people who joined when Doctor Who finished. And actually, my Joy to the World figure, if you see my saloon on Christmas Day, yeah, similar figures, you know, Wallace and Gromit got another 5 or 6 million. So there you go. There's that question. Next one. Oh, yes. Well, let's get to it. These were the shocking figures I showed you at the beginning, and these are just facts. No caveat, no varnishing, nothing. Since Space Babies, 2 Story in the Engine, the overnights, we've lost 1 million viewers. That's 38% of the available people. Space Babies to Story in the Engine on the 7 days, 1.25 million lost, that's 34%. And the same comparison with the consolidated, remember the media executives love it, 1.31 million people have stopped watching Doctor Who. That's 33% loss. And I make the statistical prediction that would mean Doctor Who would be down to 1 million if another 30% are lost. That means I'm being fair. Could be worse than that. Okay, figures are still coming now. Can you consume them? Oh yes, by the way, so if you're going, oh Brendan, it's just the way of the world, you know, okay, we're in the 30% of lost from Space Babies and everything. Well, actually, when I did this same analysis for season 1, Space Babies to Empire of Death, the figures were not as dramatic. They were bad, but not as dramatic. So may I say we've picked up pace in this question of whether it's a terminal decline. So on the overnights, now, Space Babies to Story in the Engine, we've lost 38% of the audience, but only a year ago it was 14% drop. If you take a look now, on the 7 days, 34% loss. It was only 8% loss after season 1. And on that final figure there, 33% loss on the consolidated, remember, their favourite figures. And here, 21% after the season, Space Babies to Empire of Death. So, I say again, does that answer your question? I just give you the facts, but I haven't finished. I'm an English teacher. You'd think I actually love maths, but I do actually like maths just to show it all in the rounds there. Okay. Robot Revolution to Story in the Engine, overnights, the figures are 460,000 people have been lost. Robot Revolution to Story in the Engine, 900,000 people. Okay, remember, so just so I'm talking too fast in a way, aren't I? This was looking at both seasons of Doctor Who, Space Babies to Story in the Engine. Now I'm trying to look at it just this year. Robot Revolution to Story in the Engine, we've now lost another 460,000 people. Robot Revolution to Story in the Engine on the 7 days, nearly 1 million. Robot Revolution to Story in the Engine, 870,000 lost. So as I said, the decline statistically appears to be picking up pace. And those figures, I think, are alarming when you're dealing with a figure around 2 million, that you're losing nearly 1 million or so. I have included, to be fair, Robot Revolution to the Song Contest Story. The overnights, we've only got them so far. Well, obviously, Doctor Who's now gone up by 520,000. But as I said at the beginning, because I've been showing you the wider context, which is what the media executives love, and that's fairer, they say, that's only an overnight. And you know what they tell us about overnights. I know they're getting excited about that overnight, but that overnight doesn't tell us much yet. I'm playing their game back at them. Oh, it's ridiculous. I'm just playing with what's there. But remember, the facts are that the 2 of the last consolidated, Lucky Day and Story in Engine, both of them are the lowest ever in Doctor Who history. So that's another statistical thing. So yeah, you keep answering that question. Okay. So we come to There's your evidence. Between the football and Doctor Who, 320,000 people thought, no way, let's get off this channel fast. By the time we were 15 minutes into Doctor Who, we'd lost 690,000 people. So when you think of those figures I've just been showing you over a season, they kind of look similar, don't they? This is the concern about what's going on. It's hemorrhaging, absolutely hemorrhaging interest. So my other figure I wanted to tell you is they're saying in the overnights, aren't they, for Interstellar Song Contest, that 2.57 million is the official figure. But it only got higher than that during the whole process of the program for 15 minutes. 10 minutes at the end, people are tuning in for Eurovision and they're not watching the story. And the first 5 minutes when they were slow to change channel. So that figure, 2.57, is out by 180,000. It's 2.39. So there you go. The whole thing is stark. The whole thing is dramatic. These are the main headline ones, aren't they? That loss, that hemorrhaging under RTD with Disney money, bigger budget, streaming across the world, the marketing hype, and goodwill at the beginning. They've lost a third of the audience, loosely speaking. A third of their audience. And those are just figures. I'm going to keep saying this because you always get the trolls. All I'm doing is presenting the figures. And actually, they like the figures that are longer. So we know that 33% and 1.31 million lost in the 7-day consolidated is what they're really like, that figure. That's the measurement, the metric they want. Remember, that means people over a week have actually been on different platforms. They can watch Doctor Who many, many times, and they all count separately. Wow, wish I had that privilege. So it's a dubious one, really. But even on those figures, it's pretty chronic. So what I wanted to say just before I come to the thread is those are the unvarnished figures using the metrics the media executives prefer. Now, you can answer the question. I will ask it rhetorically. You can believe the Mirror article, or you can believe the Sun article. Is there a new series coming in 2027, or will there be a long hiatus? I feel the audience are deciding for the showrunners and media executives. They have lost the momentum, and now Doctor Who is languishing behind Repair Shop, Countryfile, and the BBC Weather. Yeah. So I've promised to bring in the thread, and I appreciate you hanging around. So good to see you, everybody. Divine and Dragon, good to see you. Reality, when numbers go into a downward spiral, artificial bumps like we just witnessed are really too little too late. And when you do play with statistics, and I don't like it to be, I'm not trying to run the Open University here, but when you do look at it, the context is one way, isn't it? Lovely to see you, Julie. Paul Cornwell, are you still on about the viewing figures, Brendan? Well, if I'm not on about the viewing figures, I suppose there's nothing to talk about because we're talking about television. And if you're not talking about people who watch television, what you're talking about, subjectivity. And that's the one that gets everybody tribal because, as you know, that's when people go, oh, this is the best program ever because this, or people say this is the worst ever because of this. Statistics don't lie. That's the beauty of it, Paul. That's the beauty of it. Cold, hard reality. Then we can all unite on saying those are the figures they gave us, and this is clearly what the figures are telling us. You may notice I'm being as objective as I can be. I'm asking you the question. You can decide your answer, but you can't deny the figures. PB props, TV viewing is declining across the board. We agree. And if you do a decade long, I've also got that graph, from 2005 onwards. Yeah, it's all streaming and YouTube these days. I know very few people who watch broadcast TV these days. PB props, as you know, I've got no problem with that as a general point. What I said is, knowing that is a general point, you've got Race Across the World who have built an audience. It's now 6 million consolidated. It's been up from 5. They've built an audience. Doctor Who has not. Those are two facts that are different. Yeah. And on top of that, other programs can be stable. Doctor Who is doing that. I just think sometimes we give the media executives a bit of a get out with that one. There are still people enough. And remember that other fact that I did, PB Props, when I said there were 3.4 million people available who wanted to watch terrestrial TV at 8 o'clock, but not when Doctor Who was on. Right? They were there. And I did the same analysis for Joy to the World. Suddenly, out of the blue, people, if you take what you've said, PB Props, people don't really in big numbers watch TV, sit down as families and stuff like that. Well, I did when it was Wallace and Gromit on Christmas Day. Suddenly we had 4 or 5 million people in 20 minutes who really refused to watch TV when Doctor Who was on. There's enough out there still, and as I also said, PB Props, 3.11 million were available who just wanted to avoid watching Doctor Who. 2.39 decided to watch it. Controversial opinion, this season is an improvement. I agree with you. By the way, I agree with you. I know we're being subjective now, but I agree with you. It's an improvement on Series 14. However, is it good enough to save the show? And there's our question. So we actually agree, mate, there. Paul Cornwall, hopefully you've now listened to what I've just said, and I've given facts about terrestrial TV and people who are actually about. We can't allow this argument to continue, right? There were 5.9 million people watching terrestrial TV. It just so happened that only 2.39 million wanted to choose to watch Doctor Who. So you could have more if your product was maybe more appealing. And that is a fact. And you cannot deny it with any generalization that people are all outside. No, you're not looking at the facts. Thinking, yes, I used your little graphic. I forgot to say thank you. But yeah, lowest consolidated ever. I agree. John Sweeney, the show needs to be taken off Rtd'S hands, as nothing will improve until we get quality writers and a showrunner who doesn't have agendas. I'm trying to sound more objective just for this performance and show today, John Sweeney, but what I will say is there are more viewers available out there that RTD is not tapping into. So whether that means different writers, different output, different content, a different tone to Doctor Who, that's what we need to have then. Okay. Okay, I better go then. Right. Okay then, everybody. So if I'm sounding disconnected, I'm just going to do a quick check now. If my mic's rubbish, I will just end. Okay. All right. I'll go then. Bye for now.